Good evening, everyone. I'm Billy. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome. Before I forget, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Hope everyone's safe. And as I say every year, I hope everyone puts their service manuals away and realizes that this is heavy recruitment season for newcomers coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, and a really tough time of year for, not to offend my big book thumper friends. I know payday is no different than St. Patrick's Day, is no different than next July. But the truth is, if you don't have a foundation in AA, the holidays can kick your ass. So there's a lot of newcomers getting their asses kicked. So we're still in the appendixes. We're up to Appendix G, third legacy procedure. It's found on page 114 of the current service manual. The third legacy procedure is what we see at most of our area elections. Every once in a while, a district or somebody else uses it, but where we really see it is at area elections. And of course, at the General Service Conference for regional trustees and trustees at large. And the trustees actually use it for the selection of the chair of the General Service Board, and for selecting the nominating committee uses it for selecting Class A trustees for them to recommend somebody to the General Service Board. So it says A's third legacy procedure is a special type of electoral procedure used primarily for election of delegates and regional and at-large trustees. It is considered to be unique to AA, and at first glance appears to introduce a strong element of chance into the matter that should depend solely on the judgment of the majority. Now, many people have done lots of research on where did Bill come up with this third legacy procedure. Where did we steal it from? Did we invent it? Whole bunch of stuff. Here's the best I can tell you. Without taking an opinion on an outside issue, but obviously we all know that Bill became very close to Father Ed Dowling, who was a Jesuit priest from St. Louis, who was fascinated with the steps, so much so that he took a train to New York to go and hunt down this so-called Bill W. And from that meeting, they become fast friends for sure. He became Bill's spiritual advisor. Bill has talked about or written about that he almost converted to Catholicism because of how close he became to Father Ed Dowling. There is a great non-AA book out there called The Soul of Sponsorship. It's not published by AA, but it is the letters in between Bill and Father Ed Dowling. It's fascinating, truly fascinating. Sometimes people think that Bill W. just was the greatest guy in the world, and that's why he decided to give up all his power and turn AA over to the groups. But that is not really the whole story. The real story is that Father Ed Dowling told Bill W. that as long as he was a special class of alcoholic, as long as he was the end-all be-all, he would never get the spiritual benefit that the rest of the AA members were getting. And wasn't that a kick in the ass that he was a co-founder, but yet wouldn't get the same benefit that everyone else was getting? So he was the one who encouraged Bill that can't be in charge, can't be the last word. Now, I say all that because do your own research. I've read other people's and done my own. The closest thing you're going to find a third legacy procedure is the election process for a pope. That's it. You can Google it, read about it, go to the Vatican Library. I don't care what you do. But you can't argue that there aren't a lot of similarities between the election of a pope and third legacy procedure, which, um, based on his relationship with Father Ed, is easy to conceive how he found out about it. So it goes on to say, in practice, how it says, it is considered to be unique to AA and at first glance appears to introduce a strong element of chance into a matter that could depend solely on the judgment of the majority. In practice, however, it has proved highly successful in eliminating the influence of factions or parties that seem to thrive on most political scenes. The railroading of a candidate for election is made difficult, if not impossible, since voters have a wide selection of candidates to choose from. More importantly, a second place candidate who may be extremely well qualified but without early popular support is encouraged to stay in the balloting rather than withdraw. So I love what it says there. A wide selection of candidates to choose from. I would just ask you, when you go to your area elections, is that what you see? Is there a wide selection of people standing for delegate, alternate delegate, area chair? Probably not, because we've gotten so used to this kind of stepping stones promotion 2 years at a time. That's not what our history talks about. It's not that I don't believe that a lot of alternate delegates shouldn't become a delegate. I was an alternate delegate who became a delegate. I wasn't elected because my delegate passed away. But I'm not anti-alternate delegate. I'm just saying that in order for the third legacy procedure to really work, there has to be a lot of candidates. The other thing I want to say about the third legacy procedure is that if you come out of the hat, God did not choose you. Just want to say that again. If you come out of the hat, God did not choose you. No, a person chose you because that's who they picked. God's role in it is to make sure that we don't just take the person with the most votes. That's God's role in it. The procedure, there's a couple of common mistakes. One is the most common, but I'll go through it just so everybody understands. I love the chart that they've put in here. I love that chart. It says the names of the eligible candidates are posted on a board. All voting members of the area or conference body cast written ballots, one choice to a ballot. The tally for each candidate is posted on the board. The first candidate to receive 2/3 total vote is elected. So where do we run into problems? So let's talk about problem number one. Alcoholics are a hard group of people to keep in line. It's hard to have a tent to take care of that circus. So if you have 100 people voting the first time, you are not going to have 100 people voting in the fourth ballot. It's just never going to happen. But here's the mistake that gets made. The 2/3 is based on the number of votes cast in that ballot, not the 2/3 from the start. It's for that individual ballot. Did someone get 2/3 of that ballot? Now, mistake number two that is made is the old, rounding up. So I'm going to try to explain this as slowly and carefully as possible. But we do not round up in Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, this mistake has been made twice in the last 6 years at the conference. Both times acknowledged that the mistake was made at a particular time. So let me give an example of, let's use the 135 voting members of the conference times 0.66. Okay. That way you come with 89.1. Okay. Now, you could take 135, divide it by 2, divide it by 3, and multiply it by 2. There you get 90, right? 135 divided by 3 equals 45 times 2, 2/3. So 45th is a third, 2/3 is 90. Now, that's the easiest way to figure out 2/3, by the way, mathematically. I know people always want to go to 0.66666, whatever. Divide the total number of voters by 3 and then multiply by 2. And then you have 2/3. Now, if you take 135 and multiply it by the 0.66, you get 89.1. Basically the same, which is why I want to explain that. Let's say you are in the audience of somebody using the 0.66 method, right? Okay. 89.1, we always round up. Always. Never round down. Because 89 would not be 2/3. If you rounded 89.1 down to 89, it's not 2/3. And I know there's been a lot of things invented since AA started, but we still haven't figured out 0.1 of a delegate. Okay. So until that is someday possible, we round up. If it's 29.4, you need 30 votes. If it's 62.4, you need 63 votes. If it's 70.1, you need 71 votes. So those are two common mistakes that happen often. Now, the chart is very nice. Have the vote. Is there one candidate who has 2/3? Yes. Congratulations. They win. No. Go on to the second ballot. After the second ballot, someone has 2/3. Congratulations. No. Go on to the third ballot. But then there's a stop. There's a stop in the process. The third ballot, after that third ballot, after the second ballot, candidates with less than 1/5, which is 20% of the total votes, are withdrawn. Top candidates and all runners-up must remain. So what does that mean? It means the top 2 stay for sure, but if there's a tie for second, whether it's 1 or 2 people tied, 3 people tied, they all stay. Then we have the third vote. Hopefully someone gets elected. If not, then candidates with less than 1/3 are dropped. But again, the top candidate and at least one other person must remain, and anyone that's tied for second. After the third ballot, if there is no winner, we go to ballot 4. This is sometimes where there's an urban myth. Does one candidate have 2/3 majority of the vote? If yes, congratulations. If no, this is where everybody wants to say, I want to make a motion to go to the hat. So if there's anything I can make clear on this recording, there is no such thing as a motion to go to the hat in Alcoholics Anonymous. It does not exist anywhere. After the 4th ballot, the chairperson asks for a motion to go to a 5th vote. The motion is to have a 5th ballot, not to go to the hat. If there is no motion, or if there is a motion made and it's seconded, or if there's a motion made, seconded, and it passes, then there will be a fifth ballot. If there's a motion made and it's seconded and it fails, then we just go to the hat. If it does pass, we go to a fifth ballot. And if that fifth ballot, no one gets 2/3, then it goes to the hat. So the moral of the story is there's no such thing as a motion to go to the hat. Now, I want to point out a couple of things, and I recently saw this at a third legacy election. It was the selection of a host city for the National Corrections Conference. There should be decorum in AA elections. If we're trying to keep God in the process, if we're trying to make it spiritual, if we're trying to make everyone feel fair, um, um, then we got to stay away from cheering and clapping. We got to stay away from that. Actually, I'm probably more impressed with somebody who's willing to stand and get 2 votes and go every round than I am with somebody who gets the majority. But we shouldn't be clapping and cheering. And after the fourth ballot, we shouldn't be yelling or screaming, go to the hat or hat, hat, hat. No, we should just stick with the process. And let somebody make a motion to go to the hat. But we're dealing, you know, the problem with elections is not everyone can win them. So we're going to have people that don't win elections. And a lot of those people have sacrificed many years for AA service. As you go down the upside down triangle, there's only so many positions. And so anything we do that is not respectful of the people who are taking the time to stand, we should just stay away from that. In all, cheering in AA business meetings is not a good look. It doesn't help with tradition one with unity. So we should just stay away from it. I think there was a question that came in, so let me see. Our area had elections, and during 2 of the elections, after the third ballot, candidates wanted to withdraw their names. However, it wasn't allowed. They were told to let the spiritual body of the area decide. Can people withdraw their own names at any point? Yes, they can. This is probably more an urban myth. I don't know where this comes from, where people want to like recreate their version of Robert's Rules of Order. I'm sure. Hold on, my computer is going a little crazy. I'm sure maybe some of you have been at an assembly where there's a piece of business on the floor and there's been a motion made and it's been seconded. And the motion maker says, I'd like to withdraw my motion. And some concepts lawyer goes to the microphone, or the person says, you can't, it belongs to the body now. We love to say that. Belongs to the body. Well, it's kind of half true and half not true. There's nothing wrong. If the motion maker wants to withdraw it, the proper way is for the motion maker to make a motion to withdraw his or her motion. You can make a motion on top of another motion under Robert's rules in that situation. But if somebody wants to drop out, I don't see anything in here that says somebody cannot drop out. But maybe an area has their own guidelines and they've created that. Is it common for the candidates or other people talk on their behalf of the candidates between the votes, or do the votes take place without discussion? Great, great question. So, most areas and at the General Service Conference for trustees, a lot of times each candidate is given 2 minutes. At the General Service Conference, the regional trustee candidates aren't there, so the delegate is given 2 minutes to talk about their area's candidate. Usually in area elections, if you stood for area for delegate and didn't get it, and you stood for alternate delegate and didn't get it, and then you stand for area chair, you don't get to keep giving you 2 minutes. Like you get to give you 2 minutes once. What I will tell you for anyone here who's going through this procedure, having seen a lot of these, service resumes, basically, when you go down the upside down triangle, are all the same. They're all the same. Oh, wow. You're running for regional trustee. Shocking. You've been a delegate. You've been an alternate delegate. You've been an area chair. You've been a treatment chair. You've been a DCM. You were a GSR. You worked on the state convention. I'm telling you, I've seen hundreds of these resumes. We need to know that you're qualified to be there. But if all your 2 minutes is what you've done for AA, you are going to sound exactly like everybody else. The best advice I've ever heard given about somebody's 2 minutes is make half about you, basically half about what maybe you have done for AA or served what positions, but the other half about what AA service has done for you. Because that's important to people. What has AA service done for you? It doesn't need to be the Billy show. We don't need to know everything that Billy has done for AA. Like, I learned how to use Excel on a young people's bid committee, okay? I learned how to use Word Perfect on a young people's host committee. I learned how to dress appropriately for a hotel contract meeting and negotiate. I'm just saying this. Some people, they've learned time management through AA service. Some people, they've learned working on a team through AA service. All I'm saying is don't make it all about that. Any other questions on third legacy procedure? I do not see any. I'm going to go to Appendix H, the new group form. The small print on that form couldn't be any smaller, and I'm not going to read it. So I'm just going to tell you that right now. I will tell you something that I think we never meant to happen. Well, first of all, you can choose the kind of language it is. You can say the area number, the district, the group start date, the group name, the number of members, where the meeting meets. If your virtual group does not have a specific city or town, what would you like used? Is it English, Spanish, French? Is it in person or is it virtual? Does your group meet in the hospital, treatment center, or detox? Is it open to AA members outside the center? If it does. And then it has primary contact, general service representative, alternate GSR, or male contact. And here's the difficulty with this group form. And Nobody meant for this to happen. But I have the AA group pamphlet in front of me. Page 12, is there a difference between a meeting and a group? But yet the only form we have is a group form. That's it. Can't check that you're just a meeting. Just a group form. And if there is anyone who's done in a group service here, a central office, or still is currently involved, whatever, what I'm saying is not meant to pick on central offices or intergroups. But one of the things that happened in the last 40 or 50 years is in some places, if you call and say, hey, I started a new meeting, I want to get it listed, and the where and when, a lot of places will say, what is your GSO number? We won't list you until you get your registered GSO number. So we've been encouraging meetings to get all these group numbers. But that's where it all starts, with that new group form. There's two questions here. I want to first say one thing about third legacy procedure. There's no discussion in between the rounds of voting. That's not third legacy procedure. That would be something different, kind of like, but not third legacy procedure. If there is only one person standing for a position, do we go through the third legacy procedure, or does the candidate get the position by acclamation? This is a very important question. So what happens if it's an important position and someone not qualified stands for it and they're the only one? What do you do? I can tell you that like 4 years ago, I spent like 3 conversations with a bunch of area officers in a particular area because someone got elected who was totally non-qualified and it blew up in that area's face. The best thing to do when it's one person is for someone to make a motion to have the secretary cast one ballot in favor of that person. And then if that motion fails, that person's not elected. But we have to be very careful with these one candidate elections. Can you explain when people stop voting how to calculate 2/3? Do you mean like when the ballot count changes? Sure. I'm facilitating a third legacy election. We count up the first round of ballots. There's 120. I put 120 up on the board. I put what's 2/3 of 120 up on the board. Then we go ballot by ballot. Someone calls out the ballot, and I mark Joan, Wendy, Susie. Then I pass out the second round of ballots, and only 105 come in. As long as 105 meets the quorum of that setting, the new 2/3 is based on that 105, not the first round of elections. So that's what I was trying to say. Appendix I is the group information change form, just letting you know what it looks like. Appendix J is the DCM and DCMC change form that is submitted around election time. The group information change form, Appendix I, is submitted around election time when you elect the new GSR, a new alternate GSR. Those are important things to send in from your group when you have elections, and from your district for the DCM and DCMC change form. Um, any questions on the group or the DCM change form? Uh, Here's a good question. What is a common reason that a new group form is not accepted? That's a great question. Prior to contrary belief, um, they do not look and see if there's a meeting right down the street at the same time and the same day and write me back and say, hey, have you talked to them? No, that doesn't happen. The biggest problem is names of groups. If there is any reason why, the biggest reason why certain group forms are not originally taken in, it would be that the name of the group does not currently meet our criteria. It could be the name of a living or deceased AA member, including Bill or Bob. Now, before we had that, there are some groups still with that in their name. But the conference took a hard turn a bunch of years ago that we treat Bill and Bob like any other AA member. They are not gods, not deities, not prophets. They're just drunks. Sometimes somebody will name something after a treatment center or a hospital. We don't do that either. It's funny what gets slipped by. In Southern California, in the San Diego area, um, uh, what the hell is it? Hold on. I got to grab something. Hold on. There is registered a long time ago the MFSG group, just with those acronym. That would stand for Mother, second word I can't say, spiritual group. That slipped by. How about this one? The resentment from the International Convention in San Diego and the money. The FNY group in good old San Diego County. Yep. But that is the biggest reason the person who asked that question, just so you know, it's names. Okay. Point of clarification. I keep hearing acclamation when there's only a single candidate in the third legacy procedure. Acclimation refers to the process of an organism adjusting to a new environment. I believe the term to be used is proclamation, which means an official, formal, and public declaration issued by a body of authority. So, I'm not going to debate that. I would probably agree with this question maker's logic. But each area is up to do what they want to do, and they call it what they want to call it. If a dual purpose group like Yoga for Recovery sends in a new group form, should they be allowed to be a group? No, no double trouble groups of any kind. There's two kinds of meetings, open and closed. You can be a special purpose meeting, but that should not be in the name. Let's see. I'm going to go to the conference charter, the original conference charter, which I'm really, and then the next is the current conference charter. I think what I will do is we'll go through the original conference charter, at least tonight. Remember, this is the spiritual handshake. This is where it all starts. Here's a last minute question, of course. What if a group changes into a double purpose group? Well, of course, I know, shocking. People might be dishonest or lie, even in Alcoholics Anonymous. But register is one thing, do is another. The only thing I can tell you is this, as an old timer pointed out one time, and it made a lot of sense to me. Only in Alcoholics Anonymous do we have to put an adjective in front of honesty, like a kind of honesty. In the rest of the world, just honest. Honesty. Nope. In our fellowship, we had to throw rigorous in front of it because we know that for alcoholics, just honesty isn't enough. There's a little legal room there. Whereas the rest of the world, honest is honest. So what can I tell you? They might send in one form and they might do another. Um, Somebody just asked a question. Is it still delayed 30 days for a group to be registered? Um, yes, but there is not an investigation. The area, the delegate is given notice, the registrar, and they might check the address, make sure the information is correct. But we don't send people out to like go to the meeting and make sure it's 100% AA. We definitely do not do that. And the other thing that's really important, I want to say before I get to the conference charter, there is no such thing as an official AA group. I know people don't want to hear it. I know it drives people crazy. But that number means nothing. That number is a way for you to be communicated with because you say you're an AA group, not we say you're an AA group. So all it is a registration number that you are listed as a group because you say you are. There is no official good housekeeping seal of approval that you are some kind of official AA group. Is OIAA allowed to accept any group names? For the rest of everybody else, that's the online intergroup of Alcoholics Anonymous. I do not know what their rules are, what their guidelines are, but you could write to OIAA and ask them. Any other questions? And I'm going to go to the conference charter. Okay, here's another question. Is it common or appropriate for an intergroup to send a representative to a new meeting? It would matter why. If it's to greet them and thank them and be grateful for another new meeting, I think that is awesome. And to let them know that intergroup exists and that intergroup is there to serve the group, not to watch over the group, I think that's awesome. If it's to go out and find out, are they like a real AA or whatever else? Listen, there's a lot of legal implications there. AA groups are not connected legally to districts or the area or even intergroups or central offices. The last thing we need is a central office or intergroup being sued because some group didn't shovel the snow out in front of the group, right? Or they meet in a parking lot with bad lighting and somebody wants to, like, we're not a franchise. Each AA group is a spiritual entity. It's not legally connected to the central office or the intergroup. More questions coming in. Can you explain when people stop voting? All right, I did that, right? How to calculate? Yeah, I did that. Okay, the meeting guide app. has meetings with an individual's name. If a listing goes through a central office site, it is on the meeting guide app within 24 hours. But that's different than being a group. See, a lot of people don't understand this. Let me kind of explain meeting guide app. Meeting guide app is basically a spider web connected to every intergroup and central office website that chooses to participate. And what it does as a digital electronic spider is it scrapes the meeting information from that intergroup and downloads it into Meeting Guide app. So the information does not come from the group listing at GSO. That's a separate listing. It comes from the meeting guide. It comes from the individual meeting listings of central offices. So if there is a meeting that has a person's name and the central office accepted it, and they didn't register as a group, it's not going to be kicked back. Oh, is it common or appropriate for an intergroup to send a representative to a new meeting to check if they're following traditions, et cetera? Well, don't come to my home group because we might get a failing. Listen, my home group's the primary purpose group at the Oasis Club, 7 a.m. I'm sure that there's probably something we do wrong. I'm often at the lunchtime meeting. I don't even know the name of it at the Jupiter First Church. I have to say that no, it's not to go out there and like look for traditions violations. It's the group's job to make sure the intergroup is doing their job. It's not the intergroup's job to make sure that the groups are doing their job. Oh, I'll read this question for any current trustees that might listen to this recording or anybody at GSO staff. But the question is, how long should we wait for receiving a GSR packet after we register as a GSR? It seems there's difficulties with this in a while. If you think that you're waiting too long, I would contact your delegate. And listen, the service manual keeps getting bigger and bigger, right? There's a downside to that. Like now, the service manual, the best thing for somebody my age, right? The best thing I can describe the service manual as is the old Sears Christmas catalog. That's the size it is now. That used to be the greatest day in the fall when the Sears Christmas catalog arrived at your house. Our service manual is now that size. Now, here's the difficult part of that. They no longer mail a service manual to a newly registered GSR because it got too expensive. They're too big. So hopefully they're getting it from their area or their district but if you think you haven't received it in time, please call your delegate. Do intergroups generally go out and create new groups themselves? Since it was asked generally, no. Might they ever do it? There are some intergroups that allow a group to meet in their location at lunchtime or at night, but I don't know of generally intergroups going out and starting new meetings. What do you recommend to a group who digitally collects 15, I'm guessing they mean $15,000 per year from their members? Incorporate? Uh, Whoever asked me this question, I am going to, that's such a complicated question. Please send me a text message. I put my number there. It's a million considerations on the money. Um, how do you bank? I mean, we have so many. We still have groups that are using somebody's social security number who's been dead for 20 years, who was the first person to start a bank account in like 1982, right? It used to be you could just go down to your local bank, say, hey, I'm William. This is my last name. This is my social security number. I need a bank account in the name of the One Day at a Time group. And they just did it. And then after 9/11 and a lot of money laundering and source of funds, uh, laws, it's not that easy anymore. Um, so that person reach out to me. I'd be glad to ask more questions about your particular situation, um, and what might be best for you. This is in reference to the conference charter. I'm going to ask that person to save that question for next week. What is the difference between intergroup and steering committee? So, um, a group can have a steering committee, an intergroup can have a steering committee, an intergroup might have a board of directors. The problem in AA is we have so many different service entities and we use a lot of the same language with different definitions, which is why I always suggest get your district guidelines, get your area guidelines, get your intergroup guidelines so that you know what they mean when they're using that phrase or word. So I'm going to call an audible. I don't want to only have 10 minutes or so to do the original conference charter, which might be better that next week we can do the original and the current in the same hour, talk about the differences between the original and the current one. But I think what I'll do, my my if my iPad is like on the fritz, I'm going to go crazy. Anyway, here's your opportunity to ask any general service question that is in the back of your head that is not about some controversial conference topic. But if you have one, I would gladly take it now because we're going to go back to the conference charters next week. I don't know why I'm going to leave a little time. Okay. I asked the area chair about area guidelines. The response was, we use committee guidelines. Okay. I'm sorry that was the response because it doesn't help you. And it's my pet peeve in AA service. Like, we shouldn't flippantly dismiss questions or give answers that you need 20 years in service to understand. They might be called something else. You might keep track of like a book of motions, and that's how you know how your area does business. I would ask your area chair, like, where are the policies and procedures for how we do business? But there is the rare area that doesn't have it. They just do it by motion. The problem with that is it's hard to look up those motions when you're trying to see how you do business. What is included in the new GSR package you refer to? And can the new GSR just order it? Well, you can go to aa.org and you can see it right there, and you can get an electronic version. That's number one. And number two, if you register as a new GSR, you should automatically get it. Also, you mentioned that a group can't use the names, but can a meeting. So like I said, GSO doesn't have a way to register meetings. But you're in a group may, and they don't care if you're a registered group with GSO, and they may not care about names as much as the General Service Office does. What if there is no motion to have a fifth ballot? Then it, like the book says, it goes right to the hat, straight to the hat. Okay, that person is going to reach out on the money question. How is a quorum decided? Does a small district have to do that? We have small meetings with few GSRs. We are a geographically large district with weather being a problem for many months. Well, what I would tell you is your district or your area gets to decide your quorum. There's really only two ways to base a quorum: on the number of people who show up or the number of people who actually hold the position. At the General Service Board, the AAWS Board, the AA Grapevine Board, and the General Service Conference, it is not based on how many people show up. It is based on the total number of that position. But most areas, because a lot of groups don't participate, if they did the same, they would never be able to conduct business. So what they usually do is say, at 9 o'clock on Saturday, we're going to cut off registration. And that's going to be our 2/3 number for the summer, for the weekend. Like that, we have 200 people here when we started. We have to have at least 80% or 2/3 of that to conduct business for the rest of the weekend. But at the AAW, at the General Service Board, there's 21 trustees. It's based on 21 all the time, not based on how many show up. At our last assembly, several folks said, I want to do service a long time, so I don't want to be a delegate yet. It seems like you have done a lot of service after being delegate. What are they talking about? Let's see. I want to do service a long time, so I don't want to be a delegate yet. I guess they're thinking that like once you're done with being a delegate, you can't still do service, which that's not true. But without me understanding what they were really saying, I can't interpret for them. Does it get confusing for areas in GSO whether a meeting is a meeting or a group to track active participating groups in the service? Yes, of course. When we say only 40% of groups contribute, we're saying 40% of the groups registered. And we know that a lot of them are just meetings. So it has an effect on that number. Or when we say we only need so much money per group to be self-supporting, well, per group or per meeting? So this whole meeting and group thing has really thrown our numbers, been a problem for sure. Let's see. Our area just held elections. Every panel usually starts out with a lot of enthusiasm, but at some point during, it significantly declines. Any suggestions on how to keep servants engaged? And is this common in other areas? I think it's common in life. I don't think it's an AA thing or an area thing. What I would tell you is I go to a lot of AA events or service events, and a lot of them, you wonder why we were gathered today. Like there doesn't seem to really be a reason. There's not a purpose. We seem to just be regurgitating because that's what we're supposed to do every 2 months or every quarter. And I would tell you that's a way to bore people and keep them from never coming back. There should be a reason to engage. I'm a big fan of the book. It's not an AA book, it's a business book, Death by Meetings, Death by Meeting, about how to have effective meetings that keep people engaged. Some of our meeting scripts are just, it's like we just want to check the box and say we had the district meeting in September, rather than what do we want to accomplish at the meeting. Okay, here's what I'm going to ask everyone to do. And if you're listening to this on the recording, please get a highlighter or a pen and read through the current conference charter and the original conference charter and look for any things that look different or anything in either one of them that causes you to have a question. It's the most important document in the whole service structure. Nothing is more important. Everything rests on the conference charter. It's the documented handshake agreement between the trustees and the groups. And because the conference is an illegal entity, that conference charter is a spiritual agreement. But everything we talk about and everything we do comes from the conference charter. That's how important it is. So with that, I am going to close with the responsibility statement, wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving again. I am responsible when anyone, anywhere reaches out to help. I want the hand of AA always to be there. And for that, I am responsible. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.